Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the show. So, today I am here to welcome a friend of mine that I met when I first came over here to the DR. And she became quickly a friend and a soul sister. So, welcome Phoebe Hawk to the show.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes, it's fun, fun, fun. So
Yes.
we're going to be discussing astrology because as I haven't had the pleasure of a reading as of yet, but I've heard you are the one.
Thank
So
you.
so I've heard such wonderful things. I was like, I want to do a show on astrology. And as
Absolutely.
soon as I got that, I was like, okay, it's time to reach out to Phoebe.
Thank you. I'm very
So
honored. It is my true passion and joy. So thank you.
you're very welcome. So now I know that you have to run off and grab your computer, but before you do that, like, is you want to give us a little bit, just a little
Yeah.
bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So I started studying astrology just as like a side passion. Never in a million years did I think I would end up doing this for a living. I worked in Congress, I worked for all types of nonprofits, and then I just kept feeling this calling, like I had a spiritual gift that I was supposed to use. And so astrology has just been a huge help for me because astrology really is a map of the soul. And so even in my chart, you can see where, my gifts are, and it really helps me come into my gifts. And so I work now as what I call a spiritual midwife. So I help people come into their own gifts, to identify what their spiritual gifts are and their spiritual purpose. And so I run a program that helps people kind of step into that. And I use, shamanism, and I use astrology. And so those are sort of my main tools that I use to support people as a spiritual midwife.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it was really a good like synopsis and overview of exactly who you are and what you do. So,
Well, and I guess the other thing I want to add is that when I think back on my life, and I'm only 44, but it was a very long journey of coming into my own. I sort of like to say I like wandered in the wilderness for about 40 years, and so part of what I hope my journey can do to help others is avoid the wandering in the wilderness for 40 years part. Like I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing. I just need help with clarifying it and kind of walking through the resistance around, really stepping into what I'm supposed to do. So, yeah.
yeah, and I think that that's a really good point because like I think we all do that. I think that that's part of the purpose that all of us that are on this spiritual path have because it's not, we are connected to divine wisdom. We are connected to our souls. Like, I mean, we know everything we need to know somewhere, right? It's part of us. It is us. So it's not that we can never find our way if we don't have help. That's not it. It's but boy, does it make the journey that much easier.
Right. And
Like
I like to say that, like, probably the hardest part of my job is being able to see people's gifts and just how powerful and beautiful their medicine is. But they can't see it. It's like sometimes I wish I could just shake them. Like, don't you see how amazing you are? But they're struggling with self doubt and, all the human experiences that we have to walk through, So, yeah.
yeah, and it just makes that journey that much shorter. It's like because when we're like a lot of times I'll describe it with the work that I do is like, we're walking a path and if and we all veer off of it, right? But like if we veer off of it, if we're self-correcting, a lot of times we don't even know we veered off of it. So we're like way the hell over in East Bumfuck before we realize that we're off our path. And then we feel all out of whack and we're not sure what's wrong. And it's like, oh, okay. And then we have to do the work to get back onto the path. And,
Right.
whereas if you have somebody that's helping you and guiding you, then, you, as soon as you start veering off, it's like, and then you stay
Right.
back on, and then you veer
Yeah.
off a little more. It's and so
Yeah.
you never get really far off the path, and that
Right.
literally translates into something that could take 3 years, taking 3 months.
Right.
It's
No,
that
it's true.
dramatic.
It's true. And like a perfect example is coming to mind of when I was in Grenada in the West Indies this spring, and I was doing a chakra balancing and aligning session for one student, and then the other student was there sort of assisting, and we would meditate on the chakra, and then would ask it, did anything come up? Does anyone, get any messages? And the one that was assisting, I would have her share first, and then everything that she had picked up was exactly what I had picked up. So then I would share what I had picked up, and she was just like floored. Like, she was like, I didn't know I was intuitive. Like, I didn't know that I could do that. And I was like, see, but sometimes it just takes someone like being in the right environment to kind of foster the confidence and, like you say, that divine knowing that we all have. It's just that we've kind of lost the confidence in that knowing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's sometimes it's the confirmation, sometimes it's just a matter of stopping the second guessing, where it's like, you're like, oh, I think I should do this. Oh yeah, but maybe I should go do that. Maybe I should go do it. There's so many opportunities and things in the world that can distract us that sometimes it's just that, like, sometimes it's just saying stuff out loud.
Yes.
And weird shit makes sense in our heads.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I find that is the gift of the astrology reading, is that someone that doesn't really know you and doesn't know the inner workings of your being is telling you all the things that you know, but you just really needed confirmation. And that's the gift of astrology, because it's not like I know, but your chart knows, because it's the map of your soul. And so I can tell you, what your soul says. And so a lot of times it's just like, just hearing someone else say it, like, I always felt like I had this gift, and I'm like, yes, it's right here. It's right there. You do. You have it.
Yeah.
Or
yeah. Like, so it gives you that confirmation.
Like, oh, I'm so like ADD and and I'll be like, no, you're not. You just have Neptune and Uranus on your ascendant. So you're basically receiving messages like crazy, and you just have to learn how to integrate the messages. You're not ADD. There's nothing wrong with you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we're gonna have to check my chart, because I got diagnosed with ADHD like in my 20s or something.
Right.
Yeah. And they were like, it's this. I don't know what it was, a psychologist or something, and he's like, "Do you have your old report cards?" And I went to my mom, and she had all of them.
Wow.
Kindergarten through 12th grade. So I give them to this guy. I go back the next time, and he goes, nobody said anything about ADHD. And I was like, no, they didn't diagnose it back then, when I was in school. He goes, I understand that. I was only in my 20s. So, but he goes, I understand that. I know they didn't normally, but nobody ever hinted. He's like, there is not one semester in 1 year in 13 years of school that there's not at least one comment about you having it.
Wow.
He's like, it's insane.
He's saying that he doesn't think you have that diagnosis.
No, he's saying that I definitely did, and he can't believe the school didn't pick up on it.
Oh, right. No, you're right. It's more recent.
Yeah, but I mean, like, to me, it's not. I've lived many, many years since then, and I don't take medication. I don't look at it as a, there's something wrong with me or a disability. Right. It's just, it's the way I work.
Exactly.
So I've gotten used to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting that of all the days that this live fell on, that today is the full moon in Pisces. So I was wondering if you wanted me to just give a little bit of like an overview of this full moon, because it's quite a powerful portal. If Absolutely. That would be of interest to you and your listeners.
I think that would be perfect.
Okay. So that's sort of the big picture. And then, we'll take a look at your chart, and that'll be like the specific picture snapshot of your soul.
You can't plan it any better than that.
So this full moon obviously is in Pisces, and whenever we have a full moon, the moon is opposing the sun, right? So right now the full moon is it's the late degree of Pisces, and it's opposing the sun in Virgo, because Virgo and Pisces are across each other on the zodiac chart. And so the sun is in its final degrees, so we've got this perfect opposition between the sun and the moon. So there's kind of an energy of like a tension that wants to be brought together, right? But it's kind of an inherent, sort of an opposition is a tension, but it can be a creative tension. It doesn't have to be a negative tension like some of the other aspects that we have. So we have that, and then because Neptune is also in Pisces right now, so these planets, I like to think of them as ancestors, and technically people would say Neptune is a male energy. I experience it as more of an androgynous energy, very etheric, but you could sort of think of it as like your fairy godmother, a lot of magic, a lot of healing type of energy. It's the furthest away. So whenever Neptune is ruling something, it can create a little bit of like illusion, and things can be a little bit foggy. But the bright side of Neptune is that it's really like the ruler of spiritual healing. So Neptune rules over the constellation and the sign of Pisces. So for example, if you know someone that's like highly empathic, to the point where they might even like take on people's pain, whether physical or emotional, most likely you're going to find a major Pisces placement in their chart. So if they don't have like their moon in Pisces, they're going to have Neptune on their ascendant, which makes them like a Pisces rising, so Neptune and Pisces really rule over sort of the world of empaths and that empathic gift where people just like, you can tell them a lie, but they will know right from wrong, because that's what that gift gives them. So like a lot of the people in the Temple of the Goddess have major Pisces placements, and they're highly empathic, which is obviously a gift we have to learn to work with. And that gift tends to get exaggerated when the moon is in Pisces. So because it's like it magnifies our empathic kind of abilities. So we're sort of, sometimes it can be paralyzing for like really empathic people because they're feeling everything. And there's a lot in the collective unconscious right now. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot that's being felt. So sometimes people can get a little overwhelmed when the moon is in Pisces just because they're feeling more. And then the full moon is at 28 degrees of Pisces, and Neptune, that rules Pisces, is also in the sign of Pisces right now. So they're together. So not only is the full moon in Pisces, the full moon is conjunct Neptune in Pisces. So it's very like, but in this portal, it's like literally like the portal of spiritual healing. Like you could call in like cosmic divine light, unconditional love, from this Piscean portal, and you could really heal and dissolve and release things. So, the full moon is really about release. It's about completion. And if you think about something you've been journeying with, like say self-doubt, like you've always felt unworthy, or you've always had, doubt about your value or your gifts or whatever it is. If you think about how once you journey with something long enough and you come into a place of maturity and integration around it, it's kind of like it comes time to harvest the wisdom of that journey. And that's kind of another way of thinking about the full moon. It's like it's a time of completion. It's a time to lay something down. So like for me right now, I'm really working on this energy of self-doubt. And people always laugh because I know I seem like this big gangster alpha. Like, how could I ever have self-doubt? Yes, me too. I have self-doubt. I'm human. I have self-doubt. So, just self-doubt around my path and da-da-da-da. So it's a great time to really release, not necessarily, from the mind, but from the energy body, so where these imprints are sort of held inside the energy body, and to really call in divine healing, energy healing, that type of thing. And I did an energy healing yesterday on Instagram. It's on my Instagram account. I did it live, and it's there. If anybody needs some divine healing, and we could even do a meditation later if you want, but anyway, so that's a big part of this day, this portal. And then we have a couple of just quick aspects that I'll mention just in case people are feeling energies and they kind of want to know what it is. So one, we have Venus squaring Saturn right now. So Venus is kind of like what's going on in our relationship house, like how our interactions with humans, with people is kind of working. And so Venus is in Scorpio, so she wants depth, she wants connection, she wants transformation. And the lower side of Venus in Scorpio is that it can get manipulative. That's the low side of Scorpio. But the high side of Scorpio is connection and divine union. So Venus in Scorpio right now is squaring Saturn in Aquarius. So when we have that aspect, we have a tendency to kind of get into like power trips with authority. You could run into a police officer on the highway, or you could get into a fight with your boss, or so that type of energy. So I try to give people a heads up when these aspects are going on, because it's kind of like, if you're thinking about getting into it today, try like next week, you know? Like, it's probably not going to go that well, you know?
So Kit, is there something in my sign that shows that I have a problem with authority always?
Well, here's the good news. Most of us in our tribe do. Most of us have major authority issues. We don't deal with authority. We can't work for other people. Like, so much for a 9-to-5 job, right?
Oh, I can't do it.
I can't do it. I have major authority issues myself too. And
Yeah.
and also, you know, Uranus, which is very much of a major ruling theme of this year. So the other backdrop that I just want to provide astrologically, to not just to this full moon, but just to kind of like where we are cosmically as humanity this year, is that the planet Uranus, which is the planet of like rebellion and freedom, is squaring Saturn, which is like the planet of like tradition and, you know, be responsible. And they're squaring each other like this whole year, like, you know?
Wow,
so
that's interesting.
It's very
That's
interesting.
like, that's what's happening in the world right now.
Yes.
And you said
yes.
that's happening the whole year?
Yeah, so there's like 3 specific squares that happen, but because they're both also going backwards this year, they squared, then they came apart. Oh, the power just went off. Speaking of Uranus, that's so funny. I have a tendency to shut down electrical systems. Hopefully it won't interrupt the live. So Uranus and Saturn are both in retrogrades. Then they went in reverse and squared again. And now they're both about to go forward and they're going to square again. So it's happening this entire year.
Wow. So that's and that's exactly what's happening in our world, where we're going from, we're transitioning from the old traditional way of being, the way humanity's been for thousands of years, and we're transitioning into creating something new, an actual freedom, something that's based in freedom, because we don't,
Yes.
we have
Which is what
now.
Uranus is about. Uranus wants freedom and awakening and truth. That is Uranus' ultimate goal.
And that's the paradigm we're ushering in now. So the old is being confronted with the new. How perfect is that? You know, so this is like, this is part of the wave that I feel like, if you're going to try to, I've been telling people, don't try to make it through what's happening. You know, like, because we have this tendency to just, when things get real and they start getting tough, we try to, you know, hanker down.
Like close your eyes and just like,
and we just
through it.
Like, just like, okay, well, we'll just hang on and this will be over soon. And then we make it through. And then all of a sudden, like, we haven't learned or grown. We just held. And so we missed that growth opportunity. And it's like, the people that I know that are embracing this COVID energy, you know, for the last year and a half, 2 years, it's the same as what we're talking about now. It's not a problem.
Right.
It's an opportunity if you see it as such. If you use this time to usher in a new paradigm that's healthier for you, you have all the energy of that behind you.
Yes.
And it's going to transition quicker and easier if you choose to do that. If you choose to hold on to the old traditional and just hold back and wait and just hope till it's over, it's going to be painful.
Right, because it's a system that's crumbling. It's a crumbling system, and you know, one of the slowest moving planet that we have in our solar system is Pluto. You know, Pluto takes 240 years to go full circle. And he takes 20 years just to get through one sign. Meanwhile, the moon goes through one sign every 2.5 days, just to give you like some perspective. So Pluto is at 25 degrees of Capricorn right now, and he's got 30 degrees to go. So he's got 5 more degrees of Capricorn, and Capricorn is the old way, the old structure, the patriarchy, the old. So, and he moves so slowly. He's just breaking it down, like molecule by molecule, you know?
He's a processor. Not an action taker.
He would be a 7, like us, right? He processes energy. So it's just like, you know, like the system, the tower is crumbling, it's falling, and we could have the illusion of trying to hold on to it, I just realized there is a hawk literally sitting right, of course, right in front of me.
Of course.
On a light post. So yeah, it's like trying to hold on to something because there's this illusion of security outside of ourselves, but it's falling apart. So there's not really anything to hold on to.
Yeah, and you just summed up COVID.
Right.
You know, that's what's been happening is like people had this illusion of safety, you know,
Right.
and it's like, and there isn't safety. Like, like jobs and all that stuff. Well, no, I think it was priceless. Somebody said to me once, and I don't mean to like make fun of or anything, but
right.
It was just so, it took it to another level. So I use it as an example. And it was, they were saying how, oh shit, I just lost my train of thought.
We were talking about like holding on to something that's crumbling, like they're
for the safety aspect,
jobs and everything.
So lots of people go, I want a stable job. Well, somebody took that to another level a little while ago, and they said, I used to have a stable job and I want to get back to one. And I was like, well, wait a minute, like you can't used to have a stable job. Because the whole point of stability is that it's stable and that it's not going anywhere. So if you don't have it anymore, it really wasn't stable, was it? And this is a lot of what happened. It's those old systems that they were illusions. They were not sustainable. They were never going to last. And we're starting to see that now. And we're going, that it was an illusion of stability. It wasn't actual stability. I need to open up to a new freedom that actually where I can find true safety, eternal safety, as opposed to illusional temporary safety.
Right, exactly. And, the planet Uranus that I was just talking about that is bringing in freedom and, it's bringing in rebellion and revolution for the purpose of freedom and awakening, and so Uranus right now and Pluto in Capricorn, they're working to teach us that looking outside of ourselves is inherently an illusion, and so when we tune into ourselves and then we realize that, life is just an experience of energy, and we start to release our fear of death, then we can realize that there's really nothing to be afraid of on this earth plane, because when we can kind of have that perspective of like, life is not just this material table and body, and then the more we go into the internal, it's like, it just becomes like a continuum, it's like, it's just a different part of the river that you're swimming into when you go into death.
Yeah, it's just a transition to a different form. That's where, like, for me, when I really got that, I was working with clients many years ago, and I noticed that everybody was like, most people have control issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I started really seeing it with people with very large, loving hearts. And well, I mean, I started in other people too, but then I started really seeing it with these people with large, loving hearts. And it was funny because when I would start pointing it out with them, they would be so shocked. They'd be like, oh my God, you're right. I do have control issues. I never would have guessed that, so I was really, that was a pattern I was noticing. And I was like, well, so I sat alone and I was like, why does everybody have control issues? And it's like, well, they're searching for safety. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. So they're trying to control things to give themselves illusion of safety. Mm-hmm. So does everybody want to feel safe? It's like, yeah, that's inherent. That's innate within us. Everybody wants to feel safe. And I was like, okay, how the hell do we feel safe? Because you can't, with the control thing is just an illusion. So how do we feel safe? And I was like, we're in a transitional world. There is no safety here.
Right.
You can't. So I was like, well, why would we all be made inherently with something that we can't, a desire for something we can't have, you know? And I was like, well, if we inherently want it, then we should be able to have it.
I just wanted to tell you, I don't know if there's like a storm rolling in, but all of a sudden your voice is really crackly. Like my phone rang and then your voice got crackly.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I heard,
can you hear
I can
me
hear
okay?
I can hear some crackling too. Yeah, there's some background noise.
But if it's a storm coming in.
Hey, Phoebe.
Maybe I'll just reset it.
Hey, Phoebe. Sign out of your browser and come back in.
Okay, I'll come right back in. Sounds good.
Okay. So I will yeah, so well, I'll finish that story. So I was talking about you know, trying to feel that sense of safety, and it isn't temporary in the temporal realm on Earth. There is no safety here. So where is there safety? There's only one other dimension, and that's the spiritual dimension. That's the eternal dimension. That's where the safety lies. So if we can connect to the eternal realm and understand that we are eternal and derive our sense of safety from that, then we can interact with life more in a more relaxed place, because we're not always trying to control things and protect ourselves and live in fear. You know what I mean? So this is kind of how, you know, this is how I think we're supposed to be living life. We take it kind of too seriously. We lean in too much. Like, these decisions that we make are so important, where everything changes. It's like, it's, you know, this is supposed to be an adventure, experiential. We're supposed to experience things. We're supposed to experience storms in the middle of a live show, you know, and we're supposed to experience different things. So if we can anchor into a feeling of safety, knowing that we're eternal, depending on what your beliefs are, sometimes knowing that you're eternal is enough, or a connection with a loving God, beautiful, you know? So if you can anchor into that, and then it's like being in a movie theater. Like, when you're in a movie theater, you're anchored in safety. You're like, if somebody pulls out a gun on the screen, you don't dive. But yet you can engage yourself enough to feel all the emotions. You can feel happiness and sadness and frustration, and your heart rate can go up and down, you know, so you can still experience things that are happening on screen without actually thinking that they're real, you know. And that's how we're supposed to be going through life. It's not real. It's temporary. It's just, we're here for a little while, and at the end, you win. So I'll let you in on a secret. No matter what you do here, in the end, you win. You go back to the other side. So we can anchor into the safety, you know, of the eternal. Hey, Phoebe's back.
Hey, and I got my computer, so I'm going to pull up your chart right now.
Ah, perfect. So I just kind of finished telling them the story about how, you know, if we anchor into the safety of the eternal, then we can just interact with life in a little bit more of a playful way, a little bit more relaxed. So I just kind of finished that mindset, so we can lean right into whatever you got. And I do want to throw something out too before we get into the next thing. That can you see the comments on your screen?
No, I can't. Let's see. If I go click on the chat, will I see them? Chat with other. No.
There's a private chat or a comments.
Okay, comments. Oh, wow, how cool.
Yeah, so Lori was saying, and I want to say hi to Sarah and Lori, of course, and everybody else watching and listening. But Lori was saying maybe we could touch on this before we jump into the kind of second half of the show.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, I'd love to get your input on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I would jump in on this offering. I've been told that I have a very bright aura around me more than once in my life.
Really?
What is the significance of that? Also, who created the charts that astrologers refer to in their practice? So we got two little questions there for you.
I'm having the same thing happen with the feedback. I don't know what is going on. I'm mute. Am I still muted? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so the aura, a bright aura, I mean, usually the way I would interpret that is just to say that you are what some people would call a light worker, that you are connected to a higher source. You're connected to sort of your higher source, whether that's a starseed portal, your spiritual lineage, your light body is very kind of like developed, and has a higher frequency. So that would be a way. That would be one way of talking about an aura, that you're channeling. You're connected to like a higher source. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And then the question about where does the charts come from that astrologers pull up? So we're very blessed now in this day and age, because like the technology that we have access to, it literally just like, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The technology that we have access to, it basically can map, the location of the planets, throughout time. And so it pulls up literally where each of the planets were in the moment that you were born. And that's what creates your natal chart. And then it can also pull up at the exact same time where the planets are right now. So for example, when I was born, Saturn was in the sign of Leo. Saturn right now is in Aquarius. So Saturn is actually opposing my own natal Saturn. My natal Saturn means where Saturn was in the moment that I was born. Does that make sense? So you can see both where the planets were in that exact moment you were born, and you can see where the planets are right now in relation to your chart.
Okay, so is that kind of like comparing those two kind of gives you the information that you go by?
Right. Well, so a natal chart reading is really focused on the imprint that the planetary ancestors made in the moment you were born. And then the transits, for example, can show you, okay, Jupiter is about to enter your second house of your self-worth, how you earn money, your income. So you might want to really think about launching that program next month when Jupiter has entered your second house. So that's kind of an example of how a transit would inform, a part of your life.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer the question?
I think so. And well, where were the charts originally? Like who came up with astrology and said, hey, if your planet's there, it means this?
Well, the astrology that we kind of refer to as, Western or Greek-based astrology is really coming out of Egypt. So it's based on very ancient teachings of the planets, and it's very mathematical. Astrology is very it's very much of a mystical science.
Yeah.
So that's why, for example, when we're doing a reading for you, we want to know exactly the exact moment that you were born, because it's all based on mathematical calculations. And so, like up until about 150 years ago, medical students in the United States, medical doctors were trained in astrology, because there's a whole field of astrology called medical astrology, where you can basically predict what types of health issues people are going to have based on their natal chart.
I love it. I love it because it's like, everything right now, if whoever is watching this or listening to this, like if you're curious, start diving into anything that says ancient wisdom. Start looking back to ancient wisdom, and you're going to see how not only it still applies now, but it's even more prevalent. Like you get, like all the solutions that we have to our social issues are in divine wisdom. Like that, like we actually lived on this planet in a healthy way that was sustainable in alignment with nature at one point.
Right.
And some of the indigenous cultures still do. So
Right.
it's like, so, the wisdom that we think we're so freaking smart, because we're all scientific and we're dissecting things and explaining things and all this stuff. And you got all this ancient wisdom is like, it already has it. It was figured out thousands of years ago.
Right. We're going through a process of remembering, the great remembrance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're not making up new stuff. We're remembering. This is like, I saw that years ago and I was like, I noticed that the names of the teachings is even in the process of changing right now. Like, 20 years ago, I started like 18 years ago when I woke up, it was New Age, and there was this big New Age movement. And now it's New Age, ancient wisdom movement. And I think pretty soon we're going to be dropping the New Age.
It's finally like becoming, like yoga. Like yoga, used to be so like very ancient wisdom, not even, it seemed so weird. And now it's like the most mainstream thing. Health food stores. I was raised by hippies. So like I literally grew up going to like natural like food co-ops. It was very alternative. It was not mainstream at all. And now, it's like Whole Foods, So it's like ancient wisdom is slowly becoming normalized, which is amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love it. This is why, and I think that that's important because if we pay attention to the noise, it's loud and it's ugly and it's scary, but that's just the surface crap. That's just all the noisy surface crap. That's what, underneath there's that great remembrance that it's, and we're falling back into love with each other, with the earth, with ourselves, we're falling back in love with all of that. And it's a beautiful thing. And when this is why I like associating with people that are on this wavelength, because it's, even with all the noise on the outside level, we can just get back to the real hopefulness of what's actually transpiring right now.
Absolutely.
And the astrology, one of the things that I like about astrology, people ask me all the time, they're like, are you into astrology or other things too, And I always go like, no, I'm not really into astrology, but I've been around long enough to know that there's something to it. Like, it's just because it's undeniable, because I'm not into astrology and I'm skeptical about just about everything.
Right.
So I'm just standing on the outskirts, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm sitting there going, and like working with clients, all of a sudden I see patterns. And then all of a sudden somebody that's into astrology goes, yeah, well, did you know that this was going on? I'm like, are you kidding me? That explains all the patterns, and that's happened so many times that it's just undeniable. It's just, so I don't, I'm not an astrologist. I don't, but what it is like I said, I've been around way too long, and I've seen way too many times to pretend that there isn't something to it. Like, they're just plain is.
One of the first times that I started like getting into the astrological transits is with Mercury retrograde. Because this was maybe 5-6 years ago. I wasn't paying attention to the retrograde calendar for all the planets like I do now. And, for a couple of years, it's like I would just look up and I would just be like, what's going on? Like, and then I started realizing, oh, Mercury's in retrograde, like things have, the frequency has shifted. And, like when Mercury's in retrograde, people, the positive side is that people are able to kind of like review and all of the REs, review, repair, go back over things, get clarity by reviewing things. It's kind of like a chance to do it the right way. But the challenging part of it is that the Earth and the planet that kind of ruled our logistics, they're moving in opposite directions as opposed to moving together. So there's like a lot more car accidents. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of technology malfunctioning. And, and it's just classic. Like it's every time, there it is. It does the same thing every time. So
and
like
what's
little by
interesting?
little, what?
And what's interesting is people are so addicted to fear that, like, I have heard about Mercury retrograde and its problems, I can't even count how many times in the last 18 years. I mean, I hear it constantly. It's all over social media. It's everywhere. I have never heard the positive benefits until right now.
Oh, wow. Well,
Never.
well, one of the reasons that I like to tell people about the positive and some of the challenging aspects is that, like, for example, if I'm going to drive somewhere when Mercury's in retrograde, I'm literally going to, Mercury wants to let you know that he's in charge, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I respect you and I want to harmonize with how you're moving, right? Like I just basically say a little prayer of being in harmony with my environment, right? So it's like things are moving differently, but I'm still in a place of oneness with my environment. And knock on wood, I've never been in a car accident when Mercury's in retrograde. But the positives are really that it's like, okay, so just to take it to another level, when I was born, Mercury was in retrograde. So my mind basically works backwards than people who are not born with Mercury in retrograde. Like if you say, Phoebe, what do you want to do today? I'll start at 9 o'clock and move backwards. My kids are like, I don't want to start at the end of the day. And I'm like, that's just how I think. Like I might come to the same conclusion as you, but I'm going to arrive at it like at a completely reverse direction than you, because I just looked at your chart and you do have a retrograde planet, but not Mercury in retrograde. So like when Mercury's in retrograde, right, the whole world is moving on my pace. So I'm like in superpower mode when Mercury's in retrograde, because it's almost like your mind is more attuned to spirit. It's almost like it makes the mind more Aquarian. It gives you more of a spirit tuned mind. So it's great for like tuning into sort of a larger perspective on things. I mean, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do in Mercury's in retrograde. Is like you're not supposed to start new things. You're supposed to go back and review and clarify kind of what's already been initiated. So like, say you have a misunderstanding with someone. When Mercury's in retrograde, that's a great time to go back and like reapproach the conversation and kind of bring resolution to something that was like misunderstood.
And I like that you're not allowing the planets to stop your life, because I have this thing about giving my power away. I don't give it away to anything. And I don't give a shit if it's a planet or God or anything. Like I just have this thing, it's
right.
Part
the
of
rebel.
Me. The rebel part, right? So like with me, I remember when I opened up my spiritual center in Rhode Island, it was Mercury retrograde and people were coming at me left and right going, do not sign a lease. It's Mercury retrograde. And I was like, I will slow down. I will read the lease over very carefully. I will make very mindful choices, but I'll be damned if I'm putting my life dream on hold because of a planet. It's not going to happen,
Right. It's more like if you're signing a contract when Mercury's in retrograde and that's just what you're choosing to do, it's just basically saying read the contract 2 or 3 times instead of just once.
Right. See, that's what I like, because anything other than that, you're handing your power away. Totally. And I don't hand my power away to anything. So,
Yep.
I follow my heart.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention while we're on the retrograde topic is just that almost all the planets are in retrograde right now. Like literally, like Mercury just went into his shadow phase. So he's about to go retrograde in a couple weeks. But then all of our outer planets are in retrograde. So Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. I think, is it Eris? Eris is an asteroid. Like everybody's in retrograde right now. And so when the planets turn retrograde, their energy turns inward. So people have a tendency to become much more kind of internal in their process. It's kind of like a healing incubator. It's sort of like a pressure cooker of healing and processing energy.
Wow, that makes sense.
We're at the tail end of retrograde season. Like 3 planets are about to turn direct. And for me, it's going to be like a sigh of relief. But like the last couple of weeks, the next couple of weeks, there's a lot of deep process. It's a very like shamanic type of energy.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. There's been times where, it's like you're just in that energy and you like, I wake up and I'm like, usually I wake up and like everything's cool. And then I'll start my day and all of a sudden the energy starts coming up and I'm like irritable and and there's nothing wrong. You know, I'm living in paradise on top of a freaking mountain. Like,
Right.
so like there's not, so I'm like, the only thing that I found that I can do is just really release.
Yeah.
And open.
Release and like trust the release process, even when sometimes we don't even know what we're releasing because it's just so old.
I never know what I'm releasing. Almost never. I'd say at least 95% of the time, I don't know what I'm releasing. Because I think it's because I've done a lot of my work from an intellectual standpoint and a conceptual standpoint. So a lot of my work on an understanding, like I understand how life works and how I interact with it and spiritual law and all that. I get that. So like for me, it's just, like I'll be releasing and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know what this is. And every once in a while I'll be like, hey, is there anything I should know about this energy being released? Like, is there a lesson in here for me to learn? And I'll get still. Nothing. All right. So I just keep releasing,
Well, remember the last time we saw each other on the trail?
Yeah.
I forgot about it. I mean, I was grounded for 2 days just doing nothing but releasing. All I could do was just lay on the earth and just wait for it to just process through. That was, remember when the UFO or whatever that thing was went zooming by the Dominican Republic coastline? There was pictures all over Facebook that people had taken.
Yeah.
That was
and you were grounding and I was walking, but I happened to be walking by. Or maybe I was meeting you, but anyway.
No, you came to bring me something, remember?
Okay,
for my grounding, for my releasing process.
Yes. So I did know where you were, but like I was walking and I was like twitching because all the energy.
You told me you were releasing. Yes.
So you were releasing in your way, and I was walking and I was just twitching, just like because that's what I do when energy is releasing. A lot of times my body literally twitches. I'll just be sitting there and it's like.
I think I might have told you one of my best friends has that too, and you two are the only two I've ever met that do that. Like she'll be sitting next to someone that has a block in their second chakra, and all of a sudden her second chakra starts jolting, like she's releasing for them.
Yeah. I asked for it. I'm like, like I was doing when I first woke up, I was getting all these spiritual healings done and all, and like I could kind of tell something was going on, but like I couldn't. And I was like, I would like to feel energy movement. I would like to feel that, So I asked spirit and I started twitching. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I could feel a pop when the energy released, And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is neat. And then after about 2 or 3 years, I'm like, okay, could we stop this? This is like, I'm getting a little self-conscious here. I'm walking around twitching and, and having. And I've asked for it to stop a few times, but it hasn't yet. So
wow,
I guess
that's very interesting. Very interesting. So so October 6th. So literally in 2 weeks on the new moon in let's see, that will be the new moon in Libra. The sun and the moon will both be in Libra. October 6th. Pluto will go direct, and Pluto is the heavy hitter. Pluto's the king of the underworld. He's the processor. He's the one that wants us to do our deep work of releasing the patriarchy, So he'll jump over.
Mm-hmm. You know where I'm going to be on October 6th?
Where?
On top of Pico Duarte with Tahira.
Really? That sounds perfect. Is that the tallest mountain in the Dominican
that's
Republic?
the tallest peak in the DR.
Wow. I've heard on that trail there's like some ancient trees that like appear to be crystals. So let me know. Bring your camera. I'm sure you will.
Oh yeah.
I've heard some interesting stories about that mountain.
Well, I'm sure we'll see. If anybody's going to see it, we will.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that it's like there's just this energy of like we've kind of been wading through mud the last 4 months. Like Pluto went retrograde in April, and then everybody else followed suit. And then Pluto will go direct October 6th, then Saturn, then Jupiter. So everybody will start to go direct, and it will be just a little bit of an easing of that like deep process that we've been in these last 4 months. So
I love it. I'm excited. Well,
yeah,
now
that's a cool. That's mhm.
we're getting close to an hour. You want to touch on my chart a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. I have it right here in front of me, and let me just confirm. So August 7th, 1968,
Yes.
6:46 p.m.
Yes.
All right, so you have a major stellium of Leo. So you're quite the lion. You've got Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all in Leo, and then you have your moon in Aquarius. So the rebel, I would definitely say, is like well installed. With moon in Aquarius, it's not only the rebel, but it's like the maverick. You know, it's like one moment I'm here, one moment I'm there. It's very much like Shiloh. Shiloh has moon in Aquarius also. You know, so
Okay.
it's like it makes you very versatile, and also like Aquarians are very comical. They love humor. They're quirky. You know, it's like that type of energy. You know, so you're basically almost all Leo and then moon in Aquarius. You are for your personal planets. You're all Leo and all Aquarius, and then you know you have some variety in your outer planets. And one of the things that's interesting is that you've got a lot in your eighth house, and the eighth house is ruled by Pluto. So it's all about like your shamanic power. You know, Pluto is like not only sort of the trauma that we go through in order to bring things to the surface to reclaim our power, but it's also like the shaman, you know? So you've got all of the heavy hitters in your eighth house of Pluto. So basically what that's indicating is that you have quite a lot of healing abilities, you know, that you know, maybe on your path you will progress to, you know, not just offering coaching, but maybe you'll eventually be offering shamanic sessions or, you know, some type of actual healing modality as well. And your career house is ruled by Scorpio. Your 10th house of your career is ruled by Scorpio. So again, as a life coach, you're really in the business of like transformation, you know? And so that's what Scorpio is about. So it's like you're in the right field, you know?
Nice.
And then the way that you kind of tune into spirit is also interesting because you have Neptune, the sign of spirit, in your career house. So it's like spirit is working through you to be a transformer, you know, for you to bring transformation to the world through your career, which is exactly what you're doing.
Bam. Take
the
that.
other thing that's interesting about your chart is that you have one planet in retrograde, which is Saturn. And the system that I use to translate retrograde planets, when Saturn is in retrograde, it says that you're redoing a lifetime. So like that there was a lifetime where there was a lot that was unresolved. And so those people who believe in past lives, which I'm one of those people, we would say that Saturn retrograde means that you, on a soul level, you felt confident that you could come back and essentially resolve and redo that lifetime. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people who have Saturn in retrograde, they'll be told like, why do you take life so seriously? You know, but people with Saturn in retrograde are like, no, I'm going to get it right this time. Like I didn't come here to mess around, you know? So I don't know if you relate to that at all, but you do have Saturn in retrograde.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, it's you know, that's kind of how I am. It's all or nothing, you know, like I don't that, and it served me well on my spiritual path because I mean, that's kind of what it is, you know, I think it's your progress is directly related to your effort and your commitment levels. And if I do something, I'm all in. So
Yeah.
it served me well with on the spiritual path.
Well, and you also have Capricorn ruling your ascendant, and Capricorn is very, you know, Capricorn likes to be productive, get things done, you know, check things off the list, move things forward. So that's a really helpful aspect to have in terms of like operating on the earth plane and, you know, being committed to things. But what's also interesting is that even though Capricorn is like ruling your first house, you also have your moon in the first house, which makes you very intuitive. So it's a nice combination in your first house of like structure and follow through, but also intuition, you know. So it's a nice combo.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, there
Yeah.
must be
And
something to
then
this
if you want,
astrology stuff.
right? And then if you want to talk about an interesting aspect you have right now, you have Saturn transiting your moon. So when Saturn comes up to transit the moon in this case would represent the home. So it's like, you know, really you're being asked to stabilize and bring structure to your home, which is interesting in the sense that, as far as I know, you're kind of going through like a building process, you know, or you will be soon. And Saturn is a 2.5 year transit. So for 2.5 years, Saturn is really supporting you in like really structuring and laying the foundation of your home.
You can't make this stuff up.
No.
You know, like, I mean, I'm 53 and I have been mobile most of my life. And it's, you know, so, but I'm at a stage where I would like to set some roots. And since I found my place over here, I would like to set some roots here. So this is exactly what I'm leaning into, looking for land, looking to build a home. You know, it's like, it's exactly in alignment. And the other thing that jumped out, like when you were talking earlier about like the healing aspect, like a lot of times when I'm working, it's just talk, but I can feel it, and my clients can feel it too a lot of times, that it's actually energetic. So there's energy. So as I'm talking, the whatever we're focused on, I can feel the energy is breaking up inside of them and loosening up and releasing as we're discussing it.
I can see that in your chart because you also have Pluto conjunct Uranus. So it's like it's a type of shaman that could kind of like a lightning bolt. It's kind of like, okay, let's change that up. You know, it's like kind of a fast moving type of energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I thought I had looked at your chart before, but I guess I hadn't. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
Super
thank
cool.
you. It was interesting, you know, and to me, this is exactly why I thought it'd be a good idea to do one, because like I said, I've been around. Am I into astrology? No, I don't know anything about it, but I know enough to know that there's something to it. And this is why this is like, I wasn't going to, well, I guess it's not a risk. I don't really care what happens because this is an authentic podcast. But like, I didn't have a second thought because I knew that you were going to say things that I was going to be able to align with, like, and make sense of with, because there is something to it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I do have a storm rolling in now. I've been seeing.
Oh, okay.
You were talking about lightning.
Here's the static again, and I've got a storm, and you've got a storm. So.
Yeah, and as you were talking about the lightning, I could see it out of the corner of my eye.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw like 3 flashes.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool because this full moon is just, to me, there's a lot of purification, and lightning brings even more. So bring it on.
Well, it was another one right when you said lightning.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Crazy.
So I just saw a comment. How come I can see them sometimes, but not all the time?
I don't know. This was fun and informative. Thanks, guys. Well, like if you can see it on the screen, it's because Ben clicked on it in the back.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. This was super fun. I had so much fun, and thank you for inviting me.
Yes, my pleasure. So we'll, I mean, I do what I'm guided to. So right now I'm guided to have guests. So this is what I'm doing. We'll see how long it lasts.
I hear you. Well, I appreciate it. It was really fun, building with you around this topic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on and being the specialist that can inform everybody and give them a little taste of you as well as what's out there. So, and we're going to put your website on the in the description. So, thank you both. Peace, love, and light to you all. XO Deanna. More lightning. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And so if you want to get in touch with Phoebe, her website will be on there in the description, and that's going to do it. So thank you. And I think the audio kind of started cutting out. So perfect timing to end. So yeah, we'll have our information there. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and we will talk with you soon.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons and Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.